Hello, welcome back. I am going to talk to you today about how my 2024 reading goals went and the goals that I have set for 2025. I am very much struggling with the concept that it is now 2025. The end of last year just sort of went a bit of a blur, but we're here and we'll see how it goes, I guess. So I had 5 reading goals that I had set for last year. I did do a video on them at the time, and I actually want to start by mentioning one of my other goals that I talked about in that video, and that was that I wanted to record 50 booktube videos last year. And yeah, I clearly didn't. I actually forgot to check the count before sitting down to film this, but it was probably maybe like 10. I don't know. Last year just went so weird. Like, some things happened in other parts of my life that weren't as expected, and everything has kind of worked out fine. Like, there's no real problems. Everything took a different pattern, and sitting down to film videos wasn't where I was at. I've also kind of unintentionally ended up taking a bit of a pause from Instagram as well. I'm still there on my stories, talking to my friends and things, but I haven't really been posting. And I think both of those are things that I would like to get back to doing. I definitely want to get back to filming videos. I'm not going to put a number goal on myself for this year, but it is something that I enjoy, I get a lot out of. So I think at a minimum, I'd love to start actually filming wrap-ups, which is weird because that's something that I was kind of not doing when I was filming. And then just some more generally chatting about the sorts of books that I love, rather than feeling pressured to necessarily make content that fits like a certain gap, as it were. Just chat about books I like, because then I'll enjoy it, and maybe that means that I'll make it a little bit more. And kind of similar with Instagram, I think I got myself into a space of, I need to be posting this sort of content, and I don't. It's for me. I'm never going to have the biggest following on any of my social channels, so I may as well make content that I enjoy making. So that's kind of where I'm at with those for this year. So I definitely want to get back to them, but I don't have fixed number goals. So then with reading, I've actually got 2 reading journals in front of me because I finished this one. This is what I was using last year and actually the 2 years before. And then I've got a new one for this year, which I'm loving the colour of. I don't know what drew me to pick that colour. It's not the sort I would normally pick, but I am really loving it. So what I'm going to do is go through the goals that I set last year, let you know how I did, and then if I'm setting any goals for this year, related to those. So the first goal that I had was to read 100 books. And totals in, I read 147 books last year, which is actually the same number that I read in 2023. So yeah, I definitely hit 100 books, but I knew I was going to. I have consistently kept my goal at 100, even though my reading has been like in the 140s for the last 4 years. And I'm going to keep it as that. But I am actually weirdly hoping to read slightly fewer books this year. I think there were points last year where I was sort of reading novellas for like an instant dopamine hit, which is fine in moderation. I would rather be at a point where I'm investing time in longer books. I read some fantasies at the end of the year that I really enjoyed just taking the time to get into, and getting out with some of my other hobbies as well, which obviously takes some time. So I'm setting my goal exactly the same as 100. I will just see how it goes. I'm definitely not going to be disappointed if my total ends up smaller than it has for the last couple of years. The next goal that I had was to read at least 2 sapphic books a month. So I got this goal. It was 1 sapphic book a month for a couple of years, and then obviously I set it to 2 for last year. this was when kind of it started, I think a few years ago, when I realised I just didn't read sapphic books, and if I didn't force myself intentionally to do so, it just wasn't something that I was adding to my TBR, putting on my radar, anything like that. So the lowest number of sapphic books that I read in any month last year was 3. So I overachieved that goal every month, the most in a month being in sapphic September when there were 7. So I think it's fair to say I wasn't reading those books for my goal. And I have definitely got to a point now where I am following the right people, I'm looking into the right books, that sapphic books are part of my TBR and they always will be. And so I'm actually going to remove this goal from my list because I think it's just part of my normal reading now. And that's the aim when you're diversifying, is that at some point it should become unconscious and there are other things that I can focus on instead. So that one I am calling an utterly successful goal, and so successful that it's not something I need to continue. So my third goal was to read at least 3 BIPOC books per month. So that's books by BIPOC authors that either have a BIPOC main character if they are fiction, or focus on racialized themes if they are non-fiction. And the minimum that I read in a month was 3. So actually 8 of the 12 months it was 3 that I read. So I did meet the goal. But I'm not happy with that I met the intention of the goal. Again, this was, like I have said with like my sapphic goal, the intention was to build it towards something that's more natural, that I am starting to naturally diversify my reading. And I felt like there were a couple of months where I was getting towards the end of the month and I was like going, I need to grab the novellas because I'm not going to hit my numbers. And I hit it. And look, without this goal, I wouldn't have done that. So I guess you could say that has made me be conscious in that respect. But it's not kind of where I wanted to go with it. So I am going to be changing it up for 2025, what this goal is. So there is a reading challenge called the Diverse Baseline, which is hosted by a couple of people who I have come across from Bookstagram, but they're in a lot of different spheres. I will put their details up on here and I will link everything in the description because I cannot remember their handles off the top of my head. I'm really sorry. But they did this last year and it was kind of a challenge with 3 different prompts a month for essentially diversifying reading. So every prompt you read has to be a racialized author, and then fitting the further prompts on the challenge, be it like a romance or a poetry book or whatever it was. And I looked at it last year, but there were too many of the prompts, like poetry, that I knew I just wasn't going to read. But they've actually changed the challenge up for 2025, and it's now a longer prompts list, but the idea is that you read at least 1 prompt per month and you can choose from the list, which you do. So I have decided to go down the route of doing this challenge with 2 prompts a month. So 2 of my books by racialized authors have to be intentional enough that they fit those prompts. I am obviously then going to be trying to read more books by BIPOC authors generally throughout the month, but I have to have at least 2 intentional ones in there, which is kind of, like I say, my problem was not being intentional about it. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. I haven't picked exactly which prompts I'm going to do, so I have a few in mind, and then I'm kind of just going through each month. I'm just planning to go through and say, right, which prompts am I particularly drawn to? What have I got that's either sat on my TBR or a book that I've seen someone talking about that I'd love to read that fits that prompt? We're going to see how that one goes. I'm quite excited, and there's a Discord server for people talking about it. So very excited about that. Okay, then the fourth goal that I had, that everyone laughed at me for, was to reduce my physical TBR. Because, yeah, I know some people in this space and Bookstagram and everywhere have got hundreds of books on their shelves that they haven't read, and they're fine with that. And I'm very happy for those people. But my brain can't cope. It's really overwhelming for me, and I get to a point where I feel like I can't buy myself the books that I want because of the books that are sat there that I haven't read. So this was something that, yeah, I wanted to reduce it. I wanted to bring the number down. So at the start of the year, I had 58 books on my shelves that I owned and I hadn't read. And I did so well. At one point in the year, I actually had it down to 38. And then I went to Rare. Brought a lot of books back from Rare. Although, not as many as I would have done without being conscious of this, which is good because it meant I brought back the books that I wanted to rather than anything else. So anyway, I've ended the year with 44 unread books on my shelves, which I'm really happy with. So it's a reduction of 14 from the start of the year. Having allowed myself to go to a book event and buy the books that I wanted to buy, having just got some new books for Christmas in there, yeah, I'm really happy. And like I say, it's the fact that I did let myself buy those books. Like, I could have just said, oh, I'm not buying anything until I've read it all. And it's like, well, that's just going to make me miserable, isn't it? That's going to reinforce the idea in my head that the books on my shelves are a blocker to me enjoying reading and enjoying buying books. So yeah, I've got the same goal this year, but I'm actually extending it this year. This year, I want to reduce my physical and my digital TBRs, because the books that I own on either Kindle or Kobo just sit there sometimes. I have Kobo Plus, and actually at the moment I do have Kindle Unlimited for various reasons, and like those are where I tend to read the books. I justify it in my head going, well, I need to make my subscription worth it this month, and oh, well, those other books, I'm always going to have those, whereas these ones I've only got while I'm subscribing, despite the fact that I have had Kobo Plus constantly for the last 6 months. I still have in my head, oh, you might not have it next month. So yeah, I just want to focus on those. I have them written out, so I'll show you in a minute. I'll go through what I've got in my journal to track them. But yeah, that's the goals in there. But very much, particularly with my physical TBR, I don't want to not buy books to make it happen. I want to make reading enjoyable because it's supposed to be for fun, ultimately. Like, this is one of my hobbies. It's not a job. It's not a chore. So yeah, I have got some more books I know. I have got some pre-orders for this year, and my daughter actually gave me a Waterstones book token for Christmas because she knew that there was a book that I wanted but she couldn't remember the name of, so she got me a token so I could buy it for myself, which I thought was a really sweet idea. So, you know, that is going to be purchased very soon, and yeah, I've got the pre-orders coming in, so we'll kind of go from there. I do have another goal that I have added that is linked to my physical TBR, and that is to reduce the age of my physical TBR. And this one I've actually put a number on. So I want to get the age of it under 18 months. So what do I mean by that? Is that basically at the end of December, I want the book that has been on my shelves for longest without being read to have gone onto my shelves no later than July 2024. So this means I want to clear all of my 2023 purchases. I don't actually have anything from before 2023, so I've done quite well in that respect. I want to clear all of 2023 and anything in 2024 from the start of the year. There's only actually 2 books, I think, for that. It's only like, 2 or 3 books maybe until I get to the books that I bought in Rare in September. So That's essentially where I want to get up to. And I am going to track each month kind of the age of my physical TBR. So at the moment it is at 24 months, 23, 24, depending how you count it. So I have got some January 2023 books on there. It will obviously take me a little while for that to start reducing, but that's why it's a goal for the end of the year. Because again, I think it will help me in that freedom to buy books if I know that I'm going to read them soon. That it's okay to buy a book and read it straight away because I'm not like neglecting older things. And like I say, I have no issue whatsoever with other people doing it. Like, it is a perfectly fine way to be, and I wish that it could be an option for me. It's just not how my brain works. And so doing things like this will just help me to feel a bit clearer and feel more positive in what I'm reading. It is also helpful for me as well because my tastes and my focuses do evolve over time. And so the sooner that I read books after getting them, the more likely they are to still be books that I want to read, rather than books that I end up unhauling because they were kind of what I wanted 2-3 years ago, if that makes sense. And then the final goal that I had last year, which if I thought I got laughed at for suggesting I wanted to reduce my physical TBR, this one I got laughed at the building. And that was to finish more series than I start. I am notorious for reading so many series and so many long series. I mean, like, just behind me, I've got all my Nalini Singh books. There's 2 series there that are like 15 plus books each. I have got my Night Huntress Janine Frost books there. That's another like 15 plus books in there. There are so many long series and so many shorter series that I haven't finished in my life. Incidentally, both Guild Hunter and Psy Changeling I am up to date with. Got 3 left for the Night Huntress world. But yeah, so at the start of the year, I was partway through 38 series. And so that's series where I had at least one book that was released that I hadn't read. And obviously throughout the year, more books get released, which means that more series kind of fall into this ongoing category that I need to read more to get back up to date too. So there were 38 at the start of the year. And there are now 35. Was it much of a reduction? No, I suppose in the scheme of things, like, not massive, but it was a reduction. And I'm gobsmacked that there was a reduction because I started quite a lot of series this year, honestly. I started so many series, started far more than I should have done. But somehow I still managed to finish or catch up on more than I started, which I'm really grateful for. Special shout out has to go to the Riley Jensen Guardian series by Kerry Arthur, which I both started and finished this year as a 9-book series. Didn't see that one coming, definitely didn't have that one on my radar. But yeah, and I really enjoyed the experience actually of just kind of focusing in, being happy to read like 2 books a month if I felt like it. In some cases, I think there might have even been 1 month where I read 3. And I love that. And it's definitely made me think about kind of drilling in and focusing on series a bit more. If you saw my goals, if you saw my video that I did for my goals last year, I did have 3 series in particular that I wanted to focus on. So I had the Salacious Players Club series by Sarah Kate. I think at that point I had read 2 of the books in the series and I have now completed it. I have read all 6, so that was fantastic. We had the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs and I have almost completed it. So the month that the latest book came out, I read the one before. So I never quite caught up, but I was close. Because that book has come out in hardback and it is horrifically expensive to get an ebook at the moment, I have been waiting for a library hold. It was a couple of months before my library system got it and there's only 1 copy for my library area. So I'm waiting for that to become available before I read that. So I have got 1 book left that I need to do in there. And then the other one was actually the 2 series that I'm reading together as one. Lexi Blake's Texas Sirens and the Nights in Bliss series. And I'm reading them kind of in the combined reading order, which is good actually, because there are some little like crossover mentions between them. So I'm really enjoying it. And I read 10 books from the series this year, which is pretty good, to be fair. I think I was more happy about it before I then went through and counted. I think Lexi Blake has released 6 books this year. It's some bonkers high number anyway. So I've not caught up on her overall backlog as much as I would like to have done, but I'm really happy with the progress that I made there. So I am keeping my goal of reducing the number of ongoing series that I have. I have got quite a few series where I have just got one book left to read. So I'm filming this on the 2nd of January. I did actually yesterday finish reading a book that was the last book in a series. So my number is actually down to 34 already. So we've made a good start to the year on that one. So I've definitely got a few where I want to kind of tie off the loose ends. But I also know, particularly going through some of the older books on my shelves, that there are some chunky series that I'm going to be starting. And if I like them, then potentially they're ones that are going to be kind of on my active list for a little while. In terms of any series that I want to focus on, obviously continuing those Lexi Blake books. I think if I kind of continue reading at the same rate that I have been, I should catch up in the contemporary order to where I have got to in Masters and Mercenaries before the end of the year, which would really be nice to do. Obviously, if I read them a little faster, that's even better. But, you know, again, diversifying what I'm reading at the same time. There's only so many books that you can read in a month. And then for other series, I was really loving urban fantasy towards the end of last year. It's really kind of reminded me, reading the Riley Jensen books, like why I love that side of things so much. So I've got a couple of other urban fantasy series that I have been reading that I want to focus on. And then potentially as well, there is one, I'm not going to say in case I don't like it, but there is one I have on my radar that's on my shelves that could be one to focus on as well. So I have a couple of ideas, but I'm just going to play it by ear. And like I say, kind of let myself, if I want to obsess about a series, let myself do so. So those are my actual goals. I do have a couple of other challenges, I guess, that I have joined. So they're kind of like the bingo challenges that you see sometimes on Instagram, but a lot of them also have accompanying storygraph challenges as well, because I always love a storygraph challenge. They're really good fun to tick off. So let's just show you quickly which ones I have got in my journal. So here we have got my goals that I was just telling you about. And then this is my space for filling in for the diverse baseline. So I've got the space for 2 prompts a month in there. We have got the Read More Queer challenge. I will link this one again in the description. This one is Eloise someone, again, I've forgotten the handle, on Instagram, does Read More Queer. And it's just encouraging you to look at different identities and different types of books that focus on those identities. It's really good fun. I did it last year. Didn't do as many prompts as I wanted to, but we'll see how it goes. Colour book challenge, nice and simple, just reading books with the right colour covers. I have got my Ready for Rare page, so authors that I want to read or read more from before I go to Rare. Jay's Sapphic Book Bingo, again, I'll pop the link in. This is one that happens every year. It does have a giveaway at the end of it as well. Last year, I managed to read 16 prompts and not get a single bingo line. So I've written it out to try and make myself get one this year. And then just the final things that I have got. I've got my physical TBR shelves ready to colour in the books that I have read. And then I've also got my digital TBR as well, so that I can keep track of that in an attempt to reduce it. So you go, that's a little bit about how I did on my goals last year and what my goals are for this year. I would love to hear about any reading goals that you have got this year, or if you have got any challenges, particularly Storygraph ones, that you would recommend following along with. And I will see you soon. Bye.